Hello, everyone. Welcome to our live streaming broadcast for August 12th. It's been a busy week, so I am a little frazzled, I do admit, but I did want to do this live streaming for you folks that couldn't make it to the retreat. I'm just going to check over on the chat. Can you please type that you can hear me and that everything is going okay? If it is, if not, tell me you can't hear me. We can hear you. We can hear you. We can hear you. Super. Thanks, everyone. So yes, we had an incredible week. It's kind of mind-blowing, actually, to see all these names and chat with you on Facebook and do Skypes and then get to hang out with you in person. It was an incredible week. I actually can't believe that it's over. It came and went so quickly. We were looking forward to it for such a long time, but it was, I think it was a resounding success. We had some very interesting channeling happening on the Tuesday. We had open mic channeling, so some experienced and some new channelers spoke to the group, which was very, very fun. And then on Thursday night, when I channeled about 4 or 5 new beings that I had never channeled before, and they said that it was because of the gathering that these upgrades were made. So very, very interesting experience. And thank you everyone who came. And for those of you who couldn't make it this time, there'll be several retreats coming up over the next year. So don't panic. There may be something near you. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be doing an hour-long session today because I have to round up some business, dropping off a microphone system that I bought, and I have to catch a ferry. So I apologize for that shortening, but that's the joys of living on Salt Spring with ferries. So it's going to be a little bit more of a free-form channeling today. There was one question presented, which I will be asking, but we're going to see what these guys bring in today. So I will let Jesus come through and we'll see what happens. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus. And as always, we thank you for being with us today on this live streaming gathering. We want you to understand the power of this group. We mention it many times, but this week in coming together, 30 beings coming together of like-minded frequency, like-minded focus, like-minded value systems. This all happened because of the connections made through this internet that you have access to. So real relationships, real friendships, real transformations, real connections, real communion is made, initiated by these kinds of things. Now, the beings that showed up this week all had a magnificent time, and we had a magnificent time with them. But on the energetic level, a call was put out. Now, in your 3D minds, there is this idea that, well, I couldn't go because I couldn't afford it, or I couldn't go because my schedule wouldn't allow it, or I couldn't go for whatever reason. Well, those are manifestations in your life of absolutely valid and important limitations, some set by you, some set by spirit, that will not allow you to come to an event. Now, in your normal interpretation of reality, if you have a desire to go to an event and you don't get to go, you would say, well, something went wrong. And we want you to reassess that story in your minds, because some of you have that story in your minds. I could not go for XYZ reason. We don't want to put thoughts in your head. There are enough there already. But we want you to know that those that were meant to be there were there. And those that are meant to be at the next retreat will be there. We are putting a call out to beings who need to have that experience. There are even beings who got to go who had no idea that they were going to get to go. They were volunteered and their expenses were paid for them. So we want you to make sure, each of you that are listening today that did not go on that retreat, we want you to make sure that you are not saying, I should have gone and I didn't get to go. There's something wrong. I'm too poor. I'm too this or too that. No, 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 no. We want that story deleted from your mind. Everything is as it should be, and those who are called come. Those who are called get to come, and it is not destined that every person should go to every retreat whenever they want to. Some of you have more important tasks to deal with at home. And there are perfect synchronicities and perfect alignments that bring you to the perfect place, because you will have the perfect experience there and you will get triggered by the perfect person and you will meet the perfect people for your level of development. So we are suggesting that you do that with this particular event, but we would like you to do it with all events. We do not want you to say, oh, I should have been able to go on that holiday, or I should have got that job. We want you to go into this profound acceptance of what is, knowing that everything is as it should be, even if you think it is not right. The lesson has not yet been gleaned from the circumstances in which you find yourself. Now, some beings, for example, may find themselves in financial difficulty, and so they feel as if that situation is wrong, but it's arising from scarcity beliefs in their mind, and it is showing them that there is something amiss in the way they handle money, deal with money, feel about money, think about money, speak about money. There are many, many different ways of handling money. And so if you have these things reflected back to you in the form of financial lack, you have a repeated opportunity to look at how you are speaking, dealing, using, thinking about, talking about money. It keeps bringing it to your attention because you don't have enough of it to do what you want to do. So when lessons have not yet been learnt, this is what you would consider trials and tribulations. Oh, these bad things keep happening to me. I keep meeting partners who are not loving, or whatever your trial and tribulation is. Today, we want you to, when you get off this live streaming event, we want you to write down the area of your life that you consider malfunctioning, that you consider less than ideal, that you would like to change. We are telling you now that in these times, you can change things very, very quickly, but the habitual way you look at things is what creates the same pattern, the same manifestation. But with these escalating energies now, what's going to happen is, if you have not got the lesson yet, if you have not yet seen what it is you're doing that is malfunctioning in that sense, a low frequency belief, action, idea, thought, word, deed, that is continuing to produce the pattern that you do not want, it's going to get worse. Not because you're bad, not because God is punishing you, but because this is the time to deal with your stuff. This is what's going to happen as your escalating energies continue to shake up and shake out those aspects of you that have not yet been dealt with. And we want to emphasize this. It's very, very important that you understand what's happening, because it will just seem like bad things are happening. But what it's asking you to do, and this is why we are asking you to focus on this preemptively now, Because whatever you have not yet dealt with, whatever resentments, whatever limiting beliefs and ideas, whatever fears, whatever it is that you have not yet dealt with, you are going to you're going to begin to see it getting more and more activated. It cannot stay in your consciousness now. Your consciousness is being taken to another level, and it will not take the dregs of your old paradigm with you. It will not allow it, because it cannot live there. If you imagine creating a new world, you cannot take these old things with you, because that is going to manifest the old world again, and that season is done. So we really want you now to take a much more active role in addressing the particular part of your life that you feel is out of accord. And it's different for each of you. Some of you may have no financial fear whatsoever, but you're incredibly jealous in your relationship. Others of you may have a peaceful and loving relationship, but you have constant problems with your children. So we do not want to judge any of these as more important or less important than anything else. None of them are. For you, they are a problem, and for you, that is your homework in this incarnation. So that is our prescription for today, and we're going to talk a little bit about the retreat, because we wanted to preempt that conversation with this discussion, so that you're not sitting there lamenting the fact that you weren't there. You weren't meant to be there if you weren't there. So that's why we preempted our discussion of the retreat with this conversation, so that you are not feeling envious or jealous or anything like that. And if you are, make a note of it. I did not listen to the teaching that came in before the discussion of the retreat this week. I have a resentment there, and I need to look at that. That will become your forgiveness practice this week. So don't see it as being a bad person, but see it as a belief in your mind that is out of accord with truth. We've told you the truth. You weren't meant to be there if you weren't there. And so that belief is out of accord with truth, and that now needs to be brought up and looked at. And your arguing with the definition that we have given you needs to be addressed. That means that your ego mind has decided that it's right and I'm wrong. And that's what needs to be looked at. Now, the personalities that came together this week were perfect. There are always some little frictions, even in a group that are practicing forgiveness and so own their own judgments and own their own fears, these kinds of things. But there are still little frequency hooks, we'll say, that catch people when they come together. And this is as it should be. This is the revelation, the revealing of that which you are not yet aware of. So, for example, if somebody is domineering and the beings in their family let them get away with it, perhaps they're a little bit pushy, perhaps they're a little bit bossy, and everyone around them has learned, oh, well, let's let this person do their thing, because they get a little upset when we don't give them what they want. Now, that being, because they've trained everybody at home, will not have an awareness of what they're doing, because the other beings around them have made allowances and have moderated their behavior and have stepped back. And so it is hidden from them. And so this is one of the great benefits of going away to a new group where there is quite a lot of balance. You will see where your personality distortions are grating against the other beings in the group. And so this is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for growth for those beings that felt that little bit of mismatch, we'll say. For example, it could be someone who's a little bit bossy, or it could be somebody who's a real wallflower and does not speak up. They may come into a group such as the retreat that we had last week and see a lot of people who are quite balanced and easy in their conversation and have no problem sitting down to a table of people at lunchtime or whatever it is. But they, as wallflowers, will feel that constant reticence, that constant desire to take themselves away. And they may very well feel uncomfortable and say, well, look how easy everyone is with everyone. I don't have that quality. So once again, it can bring up something that perhaps you will not see at home, because people at home are used to you being a wallflower. They let you be a wallflower. There's not enough contrast in your life to reveal that quality to you. So when you have habitual behaviors, you get up and you go to the same coffee shop with the same friend, and you go to work and you buy the same food each morning, and then you go to the same place for lunch, and la, 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 la. When you have these routines, it is very, very easy to train people around you to allow you to get away with dysfunctional behavior. And this is one of the reasons that we suggest changes in routine, because then you get to see a different side of yourself out of your comfort zone / control zone and in a new environment. And this is very, very important, because your society wants you in habits. It wants you in routines. It even tells you that it's so important to get your children in routines so that when they go to school, they're not disruptive. These kinds of ideas. Now, it can look a little chaotic in the beginning if you decide to not impose routines on yourself or somebody else. But what we suggest is you just do small things. For example, if you have children going to school and there's a beautiful event on, or there's a particularly lovely day, you can surprise your children one morning and say, let's go to the lake swimming today instead of going to school. And you will see the shock and delight on their little faces. And you will go, oh, look at that. That break in routine was a really, really nice thing to do. Or, for example, if you always do the same thing with your children on the weekend, you always go grocery shopping or whatever it is, you can say to them, today, one of you's going with daddy, one of you's going with mummy. We're going to go and buy you something. We're going to go buy you a new pair of shoes, but we're going to go on a family date. Dad's going to take you and I'm going to take you. And we're going to go to a favorite restaurant, and we're going to have some one-on-one time, and we're going to go do an activity that you want. We're not going to do this work-a-day routine that we always do on Saturdays. We're all going to take a day off. Do this for your children. Don't always push them aside and allow the workaday world to win, because it teaches them drudgery. It teaches them sacrifice, and it teaches them how not to look after their more sweet feelings, their creativity and their desire for transformation and their desire for education in the true sense, new experiences, not just your school. So this is an area of transformation that is very important right now for your children, that they see you breaking your routines. They see you valuing quality time with them, that they see you focusing on nurturing them and loving them, not just in the rote way of, well, I cook for you and clean for you, that should be good enough. We want you to break these routines as a means of contrast for you and your family, so that you can begin to see a different aspect of yourself. So these routines are developed very, very early on in your life, and they are designed to quell excitement. They are designed to quell creativity. They are designed to quell freedom. And so for those of you that didn't go to the retreat and get that great big contrast of your ordinary life versus this other kind of life, we want you to give yourselves a little retreat and your family members a little retreat. And we'd like you to discuss it with them, not just you and the partner, not just the adults, but with you and your children, and say, what would be the thing that you would like to do, and which parent would you like to go with? Is there one parent that you feel more drawn to, without guilt, without shame, just allowing them to say, well, this parent is always at work and busy. I would really enjoy some time off with them. And the parent who's the workaholic can feel the distress of having to spend a whole day with one of their children doing fun things. This is a good contrast for the parent as well. And of course, if you don't have children, do it with your nieces and nephews, do it with your brothers and sisters, do it with a parent if that's who you're drawn to do it with. Take a day out, put everything aside, and do something different to prove to you that there's another way of living, because your beliefs, your ideas, your discomfort zone, your control zone, all keep you in a particular place, and that is a limited place. So we are challenging those of you who are there listening today to do that. So it's a great gift to yourself, because you will find out, oh, I'm very, very stressed out when I'm having to organize a new event. This means that I am really, really stuck in a rut. This is your spiritual practice. Remember, your life is your spiritual practice. And these are very, very wonderful gifts to give to you and your children. Now, we want to talk energetically about what happens when 30 people come together. It is an exponential growth spurt for beings who come together in that way. Now, we have asked our dear one to do as many live events as she is able over the next few years. And so that is her priority now. So as we have said, do not panic. There will be something coming closer to you. And as she steps into this second chapter of her work, this ministry, because the first chapter was building the momentum, writing the books, getting everyone familiar with the work, getting people practicing the work in their own place, in their own time. And now over the next 2 or 3 years, we would like her to have as many in-person experiences as possible, collective experiences as possible, because a multiplicity of beings coming together with the same goal, the same frequency, in love, opening up, defenseless, trained, is like a great burst of joy that bursts, that rises up and bursts and drenches the world with a higher frequency. It is very, very, very powerful indeed, this idea of collective consciousness coming together with intention. So this being had access points activated that had not been activated before by the large number of beings that were surrounding her in love. And in her bravery in stepping up into doing a retreat like this, because it does take bravery, first of all, to commit to something like this. A year ahead, all retreat centers require a deep commitment, both financial and emotional, a long time before this kind of event happens. And for many of you, that's sort of invisible, but for this being, that's part of her spiritual evolution. And the organizational aspects of it and the communication aspects of it, not only with the individuals involved, but with anyone who is assisting in the organization. These are very, very charged developmental aspects of spiritual growth. So just as you had to make a decision, if someone attended, you had to make a decision that you were going to confront the financial aspects of it, the planning aspects of it, any guilt or shame or resentment that was triggered in yourself or someone else about you coming away by yourself. All very, very important spiritual growth spurts. And so for those of you that are interested in doing a live event, make sure that you are on the emailing list. Make sure that you pay attention if our dear one mentions something, and tune in to see if this is the event that you should go to. There is nothing advertised right now that is new. The events that are current are full, but there will be new ones. So do pay attention to your guidance system, and do pay attention to the stories that come up about why you should or shouldn't do it. Are you enthusiastic to do it? And then hear a whole litany of reasons why. Go into that process and ask yourself, what are these reasons? And if they are valid reasons, are they valid reasons coming from external forces, or are they valid reasons coming from internal guidance? Very, very different experience. We will take a short break. Our dear one needs a drink, so we will come back in a few minutes. Okay. I'm just going to look at the chat here. Whew. My voice is tired from the week, so the hour long is absolutely appropriate today. All right, we have a question here. What are the components of an original thought? How to consciously and lovingly think, create a fresh, original, creative, ordered, loving thought. Is it possible to actually create an original creative thought at our level of consciousness from 3D living to 5D earth plane, or are we just to observe and choose from pre-existing thoughts floating within our seemingly individuated minds and all around in the collective? Very good question. Never thought of that. So let's see what Ananda has to say. We're with you again, dear ones. As usual, we thank you for taking the time out of your busy lives to come and have this experience with us. We always enjoy connecting with you on the live streaming event. And of course, we enjoyed connecting with everybody at the retreat. And we enjoyed giving everyone some significant elemental upgrades, we will call them, fundamental upgrades of the system that can more easily be achieved when a large group of minds come together in the same frequency. This is a very, very powerful access point for transformation. And so this is why congregations in churches were the way that these indoctrinations were taught, because all of those beings would come together in a congregation focused on the teacher, focused with open hearts and open minds, and that download of information in accord with that gathering was more powerful. And so we are not trying to, quote unquote, indoctrinate you as such, because we are not trying to go against your guidance system and your own inner workings, your own internal guidance connection. We are trying to get you to understand that that is how you should work on a daily basis. Whereas in some of the other congregations, church congregations, they were trying to get you to override that. But in the sense of a gathering of like-minded people, that is why the congregation works, because it is a more powerful alignment and therefore a more powerful energy insertion system rather than indoctrination, because you can gather people together in like-minded groups and teach them really, really good things. And that is what we do. We teach you really, really good things that empower you, that enliven you, and that give you more rather than giving you less. Now, your thoughts come in many different forms. You will notice in your own mind that there are the ego's thoughts, which are generally unloving, generally limiting or judgmental in some way, or severely directive, as in, don't talk to that person, hide yourself from this, don't go to that activity, you're not going to have any fun there, there's going to be stupid people there, don't go. That is the kind of voice that the ego has. It is a stranger that you have invited into your mind through the acceptance of beliefs that are out of accord with love. So the beliefs that are out of accord with love do not produce loving thoughts, and those thoughts do not produce loving feelings. They produce limited, judgmental, unkind, and low frequency ideas and suggestions towards action. You also have beliefs that are true. Love is good. It's good to be kind to people. I love children. These are beliefs that you hold in your mind, and those beliefs are going to be producing thoughts that are in accord with love. And so they are going to be gentler and sweeter and kinder and promoting behavior that is more loving. You also get inspirations. So inspirations are what you would call insertions from spirit, so guidance from the mothership. So you've got multiple levels of thought generating essences, if you will, beliefs active. Inspiration is not coming necessarily from your beliefs about the nature of reality. They are coming from a source that is higher in frequency and therefore more loving. So, for example, if you hold in your mind beliefs about work and drudgery and that no pain, no gain, these kinds of beliefs, an inspiration may be to go and lay in your hammock for a couple of hours and read a novel. So the belief you have about hard work that's been indoctrinated into you and taken into your mind by you, you believe it, therefore it generates thoughts and feelings that you listen to. Now an inspiration may produce a thought. Let's go lay in the hammock and read that book that you've always been wanting to read. Now, these competing thoughts now and these competing feelings now are going to cause agitation and fear. A little anxiety may arise in you, and if you're not trained, you won't know what's going on. So these are some of the ways that thoughts are generated. Also, you have thought forms, which are the energy patterns that your thoughts produce. And this would be your frequency. So you are sending out energy patterns all the time based on this conglomeration of beliefs and ideas and thoughts and feelings, this hodgepodge of response and reactivity to your internal world. Now, because you are projectors, generally speaking, when you're in the ego mind, all of this stuff gets blamed on the outside world. How you feel, how you think, what that person's doing that has upset you, all projected out into the outside world. And so these constant emitters are being rippled out into your experience. Now, because you're all connected, because you are all aspects of divine mind, because you are all part of the sonship, that means the seemingly separated parts of the Christ consciousness, but you are not really separated. It's only seemingly separated. These projections and these extensions are constantly bumping up against other individuals, as you would call them, and so too are their projections and extensions bumping up against you. So it is this constant give and take. So not only do you have your internal world of the manufactured and created thoughts and ideas, but you also are bumping into strong thought forms of other beings. And so there is a multiplicity of thoughts that are coming into your consciousness. So in actual fact, there really are no new thoughts. There may be new connections made. So for example, the mothership, your higher self, your oversoul, the guides and teachers that are your assistants, will look at your experiences, and they may be monitoring your evolution and your practice and your growth and your steps forward and your steps back. Remember, always with absolute loving kindness and forgiving eyes. And they may say, this is the time that this being now can have this new thought form in their mind. We're going to inspire them with a new idea. But really, it's not a new idea to them. It's a new idea to you. So we're speaking here about different levels of consciousness. In the higher realms of consciousness, there are no new ideas. Everything has already been thought of. Everything has already been brought into existence in that sense, but it's out of time, which is hard for you to understand. So it's sort of this undifferentiated, infinite possibilities and probabilities that you can bring down through focusing your mind into your experience. So these ideas, this what you some teachers would call the collective consciousness, this undifferentiated soup of infinite possibilities is there for you to focus on through your own creativity, but also ideas can be brought down from that into your mind by teachers, guides who believe that now is the time for you to have access to new information. And so when we speak about quietening the mind, when we speak about stepping into a place of peace, that removes a lot of interference from these lower thoughts that are being generated from these unloving and erroneous and confused and distorted beliefs. So because you're a powerful creator, because you get free will, because you can choose whichever beliefs and ideas and thoughts and feelings you want to indulge in, it's completely up to you. If you're choosing lots of low frequency, fearful, anxiety inducing, heavily focused on the physical beliefs and ideas and values, your overall frequency is going to be kept lower, and so you won't seem to get new ideas. And this relates to the previous answer or monologue, where if you stay in the habitual, those are the lower frequencies that you've been taught to keep you away from those higher realms of love and light. Because in those higher realms of love and light, when you begin to access them through the practice of the lessons of A Course in Miracles, which will bring you peace, which will bring you an expanded consciousness, that will bring you a higher frequency, which helps you break out of the prison of the physical, material, sensory world, then you become much more connected, much more influential and powerful, because you're tuning in to infinite possibilities. You're not in the workaday, rote, habitual behavior, thought, word, deed world. And so the more you can free yourself intentionally from those lower frequencies. So, for example, if you're overeating if you know that you're overeating, you can tell by what your body's doing if you're overeating, if you're packing around 20 or 30 or 40 extra pounds, that you feel the weight of it. You do feel the burden of that weight. It's something to look at. I'm turning to overeating, which is a low frequency behavior, and I may be choosing foods that are less than healthy, because generally speaking, if you're not eating a lot of processed foods and you're not eating a lot of meat and you're not eating a lot of sugar, you are not going to be overweight, and you're not going to be packing around that demonstration in physical form of the frequency that you're holding. Now, this can trigger some people here into believing that we're saying thin people are better than fat people. Not true. What we are saying is that if that's the way that if you use eating food as a way to relieve suffering, then you're going to have that physical manifestation of extra weight as a demonstration in your world that something is a little out of balance. And that's the only way we want you to look at it, that it's a little out of balance, and that perhaps I need to look at this issue, what's going on here. Now, that means that you're in a heavier frequency, not because you are carrying more weight, but because you're turning to a physical solution for a spiritual problem. So if you're suffering, unhappy, negative emotions coming up, and you're choosing food as a solution, you are choosing a solution that's on a physical level when the problem is not on a physical level. You may be misinterpreting your sadness and saying, no, it is physical. I feel that sadness in my body, and therefore I'm going to solve the problem with my body. But that really is a confusion of levels. The sadness is coming from the way the mind is interpreting the environment and the beliefs and thoughts and ideas that it's choosing to pay attention to. So the suffering and the unhappiness is being created through thought that is then creating feelings, and those feelings are being misinterpreted. I feel sad, and when I eat cake, I feel better. That's a misinterpretation of feeling. What we want to start guiding you towards is to say, where am I using physical solutions to spiritual problems? And that is what your addictions are. They are physical solutions to spiritual problems. I feel lonely, therefore I am going to have a drink and turn the TV on because I don't feel lonely when I do that. Those beings on TV become my friends. I relax, my mind stops thinking, and I get relief from my mind. What's happening is that you're not dealing with the original problem, which is that you are lacking connection with other humans. That's the solution, is to realize, oh, my feelings are of loneliness, so I am going to actually deal with the issue, which is my tendency to withdraw from people because of fears. You want to deal with that problem where it is, which is being created in the mind. So those are some of the ways that thoughts manifest into physical problems. And you can pick up this information in many, many different ways and in different levels. So in terms of original thought, no original thoughts exist. There are new combinations of thoughts. There are new methods of receiving thoughts. There are new thoughts to you, and that is really perhaps the most important part of this question. That yes, there are new thoughts to you that will seem to come out of the blue, and those will be your guides and teachers and higher frequency beings deciding that now is the time for you to have access to new information. And that access to new information is facilitated by you not choosing those low frequency physical solutions for spiritual problems, by going to the spiritual problem with a spiritual solution. And of course, you have given the means to do that through the lessons of A Course in Miracles. We will take a short break. Interesting. Very interesting. Taking a short break, chat amongst yourselves for a moment. Would someone like to pose a quick question on the chat? A short question on the chat. Yes, Anne-Marie, I figured everyone was thinking, what are the questions? for if all. What are the questions for at all if it's just the ego's game? Is that what you said, Renee? Okay. I am that one that you know as Jesus, and I am here to answer your questions, whether or not they come from your ego. Remember, we always tell you that we must address you and communicate with you and encourage you and teach you from where you are. So even the most closed mind, even the most cynical atheistic mind, which is believing things that are not true because there is spirit, there is guidance, there is a benevolent force behind all that is, that being has access points within their consciousness that spirit can use to begin to shift them a little bit. So it doesn't really matter where you are on your path in terms of the strength of the ego or the indulgences that you allow the ego to practice or take part in. There is always going to be some crack in the darkness of your mind. It is never completely dark. And so this is the point of these questions, is the questioner gets to reveal to themselves some of their beliefs. Even in, let's say, a little, what's the point in asking questions if it's all just the ego's game? There is a little bit of disillusionment tainting that question. Not a great deal, but a little bit. What's the point if it's all ego anyway? Well, you can stay living in ego if you want to, but as many of you know, it's not a lot of fun. It's quite hard to be around someone who's fully in their ego, projecting all of their feelings and mistakes and errors and judgments onto you. And so that is really what drives the beginning movement from ego to spirit, is suffering and the fact and the realization that the ego's way of being is no fun. Now, where we will offer a little bit of a different point of view around the ego's questions is that if you find yourself relentlessly asking complicated questions, that is the ego's way of wasting time. So this is happening for some beings in this group where there is an intellectual argument going on in the mind all the time. And what we are really leading you towards is a new experience. So there are aspects of, quote unquote, your experience that are very, very difficult to explain. Why did we decide to come into separation when it feels so bad? This is one of your, how did the separation happen? If everything is God, then how did I manufacture this separate body, and why do I feel so separated? And these are okay to ask once in a while. But we want you to know that there are some questions that are designed for you not to have the answers to, because you have a particular experience in separation fully and absolutely that is important. So your ego experience is very important. As much as we say it's challenging, it's difficult, you don't want to stay there, you do want to have that initial experience to remind you of where you've come from, remind you of how much you've grown, to see, oh, there's this contrast. This idea of contrast is how duality teaches you. When I'm in the pitch dark, it's very tricky. I can't see my hand in front of my face. And it could be quite dangerous. I might fall off a cliff or down a hole. I have no idea. I've got no guidance at all when it's pitch dark. As soon as you add a little tiny little bit of light on the horizon, a little house light or something in the darkness, you begin to have some perspective. Oh, you begin to say, oh, that's over there and I'm over here. And that is the beginning lesson in duality, is I'm over here, you're over there. That first contrast gives you some distance from your own mind, so to speak. It says, somebody has a different opinion than me. I have this opinion, they have that opinion. In the primitive, early dualistic interaction, that will cause an argument. But as you get more and more evolved and you see lots of different opinions around you and lots of different ways of being, you start to realize, oh, there's a lot more going on here than just me. And as you become even more evolved, you start to think, well, I seem to have an influence on these other people. I seem to be meeting people like this all the time, and yet I'm the common denominator. What's going on here? And so as you add more and more light to the ego's world, as you add more and more experience to the ego's world, things begin to clarify themselves and your self-understanding increases. And so that is the point of these questions, is that even if you're in the darkest dark place where there is very little light, generally speaking, you wouldn't be in a group such as this if you're in that place. Most of the beings who come to this forum have had a lot of light added to their consciousness, and so they are really getting into the nitty-gritty of spiritual teachings and practice. But we do want you to be aware that your experience of transformation is what we're focusing on, but we have to access your minds because of how you've been trained through the education system that you have, through that very, very traditional way of a lecture at the front of the classroom and listening to the teacher. This is a deep indoctrination in your program, and as we've said many times, we can teach you in many other ways, but you tend to dismiss it. We would like you to give equal airtime to your dreams, writing down a dream journal, and every morning looking at your dreams and saying, what message am I getting here that I perhaps am too busy to shut down, too busy in my mind to get during the day? Perhaps Spirit's accessing me and answering my questions in my sleep time. Let me really, really look at my dreams and see what the messaging system is there. Inspiration is another way, as referred to in the previous answer. If you are ready for an expansion of consciousness, you may get an inspiration that is giving you an idea that you have not yet had, given the level of consciousness that you were at before. So you couldn't even entertain that possible future. You weren't even asking those questions. But through practicing, and this is why the lessons of A Course in Miracles and these forgiveness practices and contemplating these ideas is so important, they give you a new way of looking at things. And in this deeply indoctrinated society, you need a new way of looking at things. You need to change your perspective a little bit and go, oh, well, and question what really is love. And that is why, again, this being has penned the books that have come from higher levels of consciousness, so that you can look at things a little differently. And when you look at things a little differently, new questions will arise because you've shifted up a little bit. You've shifted over a little bit in your consciousness. And so ask your questions. That is why we do this work on a regular basis with this being, asking questions. But then comes the experience, and that is what some of these retreat meetings are for. A different kind of experience can be facilitated by your practice today. So that is what we would like to say to you right now, is your practice today in forgiving, your practice today in experiencing joy to the best of your ability, your experience today in listening to your guidance system and these answers and suggestions and seeing if something resonates with you. These are your little growth spurts today, and they will shift you very, very quickly now. Again, before we end this session today, we really want to emphasize this, that now is the time to push yourself a little bit into your uncomfort zone, your outside your envelope of comfort, and do something. So if you're normally on a Sunday going to laze around and not do too much, put your walking shoes on and your coat on or your sun hat on, or take your flashlight, depending on what time zone you're in, and go for a walk when you wouldn't normally go for a walk. And if you'd normally ask your partner to go with you, don't ask them this time. If normally you go by yourself, maybe ask them this time. Change it up a little bit. And you will be saying, I am open to new experience. I am open to learning something. I am open. I am open to the possibility that perhaps I don't know anything, and that some of my routines are keeping me in that place of restriction and limitation. Now, we know that you love our dear one. We know that you appreciate her work, but her voice has had it. She has done a lot of talking this week. She really wanted to do this live streaming so that those of you who could not come to the retreat did not feel abandoned by her, but her voice has had enough and she needs to stop talking. And so we are intervening on her behalf, because she will be looking at the time and worried that some of you are a little upset that you didn't quite get your time in. But we must intervene on her behalf and say she has given as much as she can this week. And we thank you for being forgiving with your eyes and allowing her to not talk anymore. I am that one that you know as Jesus, and I am here to teach you. I am with you always. I love you, and challenge yourselves today and tomorrow to breaking some routines in a small way, and your consciousness will expand. It is a very, very easy way for you to raise your frequency. We will speak to you again soon. Okay, yes. The voice is failing, and so thank you. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry it was shorter. They were right. I was going to push it. But when Jesus says that's enough, I will listen. I will be having this recording up probably in a day or two on the website. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for those of you who came to the retreat. And for those of you that didn't, I'll see you at another one. I love you guys. And I think I have the best job in the world. I'll see you soon. Bye.